Real-time Sovryn is go.
Ooh, the man of tomorrow here for you in the BDSM Studio 5. And, I get a lot of questions about what everything is in here. And, you know, yes, it's a lot of cool stuff. I actually had somebody in here commenting on it recently. But some of the coolest stuff you don't even get to see on camera. But if you're wondering, some have asked, yes, that is a Lightning Collection Power Morpher for the Green Ranger. Like every role that Tommy ever had has all of his coins. Okay, yes, we're talking about Power Rangers. There's a Carpe Nukem bust here. Do you call that a maquette? Anyway, it's Duke Nukem right there. Next to that, a glass, a mug of the UEO, United Earth Oceans Organization, of course from Sequest. Above that is Kevin Flynn's light cycle from Tron Legacy. Next to that are two more Power Rangers. The Ranger Slayer, which is, of course, the hypnotized evil Pink Ranger, played by Kimberly, that is controlled by the person next to her, that being Lord Dracon, of course, being Tommy in an alternate universe. Easily one of the greatest storylines in fictional history. I didn't say in comic book history. I said fictional history across the board. Just amazing. People wonder, like, how can people still be into Power Rangers? You haven't been reading the comic books for the past almost 10 years now. And because they have kept that alive and have taken it to all new heights, surpassing, honestly, some of my favorite franchises in the quality of storytelling that they're doing. There's some other stuff here. There's a set for the 2000 Dune miniseries. Frank Herbert's Dune from the Sci-Fi Channel also has, Children of Dune, which is the only way that that's been made to date. That's here as well. You can't see it, but there are some Funko Pops of Skeletor and Evil Lynn. Actually, they're Funko Pops of Ellen and I, but, we don't need to talk about that. Anyway, there's a USS Excelsior next to me or behind me here, and of course the great TIE Fighter poster behind me as well, along with my Doctorate of Divinity to the left of that. Anyway, you might see some other things up there. There's a phaser. That's a phaser from Star Trek 3. I can pull this down. Arguably, I still think the motion picture is the best Star Trek movie, but Star Trek 3 is dang near. It's so close to being the best. But that is a phaser from Star Trek 3. They do not make these anymore. I'll put that down right there. Next to that is actually a Velcro wallet. And you might be like, why the hell is a Velcro wallet on some kind of like pedestal, like it's some great collectible? And that's because it's actually a very rare Robotech collectible from the movie The Shadow Chronicles, that had come out some years ago. Anyway, there's other things here. And the main thing, I'm not just giving you a tour of the studio because, I could go to the right and there's a bunch of there's Dragon Zords over there, Megazords over there, as well as the Dragon Dagger, which might end up filling out more of this studio. But what I actually want to talk about are toys themselves. Because as much as we've recently talked about how movies are in a period of transition or really a period of obsolescence, in some ways, I feel like toys are in a similar position. Not that they're going to be obsolete, perhaps quite the opposite. But what we've definitely noticed, and we have direct quotes, in fact, from companies like Hasbro and others who basically admit that toys are for adults now. They're not for kids. Kids don't buy toys, And it leads one to ask, what are the purpose of toys in the first place, right? And I think that that's a great question to ask. I don't think there's any like one answer, and there's never one reason for anything. Okay, like anything. There just isn't. Toys, I would argue, became a thing. Certainly, they've been around for some time, but certainly their rise to prominence in the 20th century, it was a way to make really what was on the screen into something more physical. Yes, toys existed before there was TV or movies. I understand that. But the growth of the multi-billion dollar industry that is toys or, like action figures and things like this, I think really come out of, comic books, movies, TV shows, and so on. And of course, video games would later come into that, though that's an interesting point in itself. But toys would be a way of taking what is on the screen or what is on some two-dimensional plane, whether it's, a comic book perhaps, maybe even a book, who knows, and, bringing them into reality. Now, these things coexist. It's a multimedia operation. And, these are the parts that we can certainly prove, where these ideas come from. Okay. But the irony is that a lot of these formats, toys included, ultimately led, because what toys did was also allowed you to create your own stories and to, try, like you think of action figures that can shoot missiles out of their back or, missiles out of their front or whatever, or, ships that they can ride in that can fire blasters or make sounds and everything. It's all to try and make the fantastic and bring it into reality. The interesting thing is that really, I think video games ultimately killed that concept. But it's not just video games, it's video games being able to go anywhere with you. And so what I'm really getting at is what's killed toys for children really comes down to the smartphone. It comes down to the tablet. It comes down to the ease of being able to make the fantastical happen, even though, ironically enough, it's back to a two-dimensional plane. It's making the fantastical happen under your control, and in a way that feels very real to you. Okay. Now, in one aspect, certainly this could feel very terrifying. And would I recommend allowing kids, and when I say kids, I guess I mean, under teenage age, 13 and under maybe. Do I recommend that they, have smartphones or tablets or anything like this? Well, I'm not a parent, so I probably shouldn't speak. But based upon what my understanding of technology and also my deep personal research into psychology, as well as, basically how the human brain works overall and just the human condition in general. I would say, boy, don't let them touch them at all. But that's just me. Okay. And I'm sure there'll be some kind of flame war around all of this. But as I've always said, when you're a parent and you have children, get ready to basically sacrifice your life. I mean, this is why kids were meant to be raised by a village, not just two people. But wow, I'm going to get in trouble for all that. That's okay. We're here to be controversial. Okay. So toys. Yes, I do think smartphones and tablets have effectively killed toys for children. And really, toys have come down to just nostalgia pieces. Okay. And in some ways, they've gone back to maybe where toys originally, came from many, many centuries, if not millennia ago. And that is out of, mythology, out of tales of gods and, titans and all other manner of beasts and everything. Just having these little figures that you kind of pray to do something to affect the real world or something along those lines. The irony is we're in some ways, we're kind of back to that, where you have older people, including myself at the age of 43, who are buying up like their memories of things that they loved, and kind of their own childhood mythologies that they're trying to recapture and potentially bring to life. Now, I don't buy into nostalgia. Okay. I've always said that the concept of nostalgia is only if it's not, nostalgia only applies if you're talking about something that you haven't been into since you were a kid. If you have actively been into Star Wars from the day you were born, or close enough there too, and you still are today, and you still read the books, and you still play the games, and you still watch the shows, and you still do this, and you never stopped, how can that possibly fucking be nostalgia? It's not, because it's still current for you. It's something that's still a part of who you are, right? Okay, so nostalgia is only when, it's something that you've long forgotten or long left behind. So for me, Power Rangers, not nostalgia, right? Star Wars, not nostalgia. Take your pick of anything up here, Tron, whatever. I watch Tron Legacy at least once a year, if not 2-3 times a year. I fucking love that movie, and I'll watch the original as well. I mean, like, these are things that are absolutely current for me. They've never fallen away. So that said, the state of toys. Whatever your reason happens to be, yes, I would agree that sales numbers and overall buying attitudes, come down to that, yes, toys are for adults now. The interesting thing, eventually that, that generation is going to go away, right? Or is going to get older, or is going to lose buying power, whatever that happens to be. They'll be on Social Security and they don't have disposable income anymore, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you could see very easily, Hasbro is already reporting, they're having to crowdfund half of the really cool shit they want to do anyway these days. But one company like Hasbro, is already seeing the diminishing returns. They're seeing the generational problems of their industry. The interesting thing is that this really isn't a problem. Like, I am not sweating as much as I would love for, say, Hasbro in particular, to make a Titanus Zord so that I could put all three Megazord, or, Dragon Zord, Megazord, and Titanus together to make a, gigantic Super Megazord. As much as I would love to be able to do that, at the same time, I don't really sweat it if suddenly toys died. Why? Because there is really a technology that has completely superseded them, and that I still think is quietly revolutionizing so many aspects of what we own. Very quietly, but it's growing. It just keeps growing because it keeps getting more inexpensive to produce. And that is 3D printing. This is not going to come to surprise to many people. But at the end of the day, this is really the ultimate toy, because you can basically, with the right equipment, you can make any toy you've ever wanted. So you don't need to crowdfund Hasbro anymore. You don't need to crowdfund that Kickstarter anymore. You don't need to go to Walmart and, see their dwindling toy section. Okay. And you don't need to worry about Toys R Us no longer being there. Why? Because either, you have people who will create cottage industries around 3D printing toys, or, eventually just about everybody might have a 3D printer in their home, on their desk, and it would just make sense for them to do that. Now, I'm actually very supportive of this. Again, this isn't a shocking thing. People have predicted this for, 15 years now, at least, okay, if not significantly longer. But it's really coming to a head at this point, and you're really starting to see this revolutionary underground industry start to crop up. And I think in a big way, it's actually starting, well, certainly it's starting in the, shall we say, the munitions industry, but it's also starting in the toy industry in a very real way. And this is very underground, and I don't think people know that it's coming, but it's there, and I am excited to see it continue. In fact, one of the things you can't see on camera every time, I am going to grab right now and pull it here so you can see it on camera. Kind of looks like a Star Destroyer, doesn't it? It is not a Star Destroyer. It is actually something, in my opinion, far cooler, but also is related to Mark Hamill of all things. This is the TCS Tiger Claw from Wing Commander 1, Wing Commander 2, and really, I guess we could say the beginning of Wing Commander 3, maybe? Where it's destroyed. Or wait, is that the Concordia? Anyway, whatever. So this is from the Wing Commander series. Very famous. And it's not the version from the movie, though I certainly would have loved to have gotten my hands on that. I had to glue this together, yes, very basically. It is not painted. It is just a flat gray. If I wanted to paint it, I could. It's really not that important to me. What's important to me is that I have a model of the TCS Tiger's Claw, or Tiger Claw, depending upon which version we're talking about here, on my desk, because I am a massive fan of the Wing Commander series. In fact, I've always told that the reason I wear triple black actually does not have to do with me being an anarchist. It's actually from the Wing Commander series, but I won't retell that story here. So the detail on this thing, the quality of it, is, in my opinion, exceptional. It's ironic that, if video games or the tablet, but which ultimately plays video games, is the thing that killed the toy industry, it's ironic that the thing that will actually bring the toy industry back, in the sense that it is a very decentralized cottage industry instead of something that's super top down and ridiculously expensive at the moment. It's fitting that that industry focuses, this underground movement of 3D printing toys, focuses on video game material. So it'll be an odd historical irony, I'm sure. But that's really it. Is as we've talked about how the internet has caused everybody to just niche down to the tiniest of niches. And as that continues to happen, basically we are running into where people can't, like, there is no tentpole property anymore. And what I mean by that is there's not that one thing that everybody fucking loves that they will buy merchandise from. Okay, that whole concept is just falling away. But it's being met at the same time. So as much as, like people are getting into their there's no longer a monoculture and there's so many niches, as much as that is happening, there's an industry meeting this shift, this massive shift in entertainment particularly. And it's happening with toys, if you want it physically. Now, I'll be the first to say, as somebody who considers himself an amateur ecologist, okay, I'll be the first to say we don't need a bunch of plastic. We don't need more plastic shit generated, okay? We just don't. I actually do my best. As much as it looks like I may have a lot, I actually don't have that much as far as toys. And that's somewhat on purpose. NECA, there's lots of these companies out there doing amazing work with some niche properties as well. And partly because, they're not like super articulated and, they're not that much better than honestly what could be 3D printed. And that might speak to the whole situation. Okay. But, I'm not one for, just pushing as much plastic out in the world as we can. So in one sense, I'm actually hopeful about this as it's solving another problem. And that problem is, like the microplastics problem, among many others that are relevant to plastic. And that is with 3D printing, okay, when it becomes something that you do, or it becomes more niche, it becomes more cottage, becomes more of a cottage industry. Okay, we generate less waste. Why? Because like this tiger's claw, this was made custom, for me when I ordered it on Etsy. And so we can make things to order, so we don't have to flood and then hopefully, the stuff sells or it all ends up at Dollar Tree or whatever. That doesn't have to happen. But also, we don't have to flood that, and we can actually get really what we want in high detail. And the closer, I think, to you having to you getting what you actually want, what you really, really want, cue the Spice Girls, okay, perhaps the less you feel you need to buy more at times. So I think that there is a massive psychological shift that is going to occur ultimately because of 3D printing and, believe it or not, what it can mean for the toy industry, which for a lot of people, they might not see that as, they might not see the toy industry as somehow this like problematic thing. But it actually has been. And for it to have its own revolution from the ground up, okay, where, again, production can be decentralized, production can be made to order, among other things. This is a huge deal. This is one of the best things in many ways to happen, really, to anybody that cares about, ecology. This is one of the best things to happen. Because, like we might get to the point where it's not so much landfills, especially if we can get to the point where, like say this tiger's claw, if I was done with it, that it could be remelted and then reprinted into something else. It's a very exciting time. Now, there's a lot of nuance to get into with all of this, but I want to put it on people's radar because I think, first and foremost, this is just some of the coolest stuff. We can get toys that would never, ever get produced by anybody. And it can be done circumventing intellectual property, which is also beautiful. Okay. The things you can find on Etsy, you can get the Liberator from Blake 7. Just anything you think of is available there pretty much. And if it's not, you can ask people about it and they will make it to order for you. So this really, it almost feels like ethical toy making in a very real way. Now, some people would say, well, ethical toy making is making it out of wood, not using a bunch of, toxins or lead and all other things within it. And sure, there's certainly an argument to be made for that. And I fully support, making toys that last. But at the same time, I think it's also really cool that we're no longer being force-fed what's available in stores, and we can actually have the toys that we've always dreamed of. Or if you don't want to call them toys, we can have the adornments in our homes that we've always dreamed of. So anyway, I'm going to go play with the TCS Tiger's Claw. And I will see all of you on the other side. But hey, get it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Like, do you think I'm off base about this? What are your thoughts on the modern toy industry? You tell me all about it. Get it in the comments on YouTube. Get them on the comments on Spotify. You take your pick, okay? Or wherever you're listening to it, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts. You can't do comments on those, but if you're listening to me there, just email me fu@nwo.red. FU just means follow up. fu@nwo.red, and let me know your thoughts. I'll see all of you on the other side.